Welcome back to the Smart and Snark podcast, where real software engineers and real software managers discuss real software. On this podcast, I have my co-host, partner, whatever he wants to be called, Mr. Matt Jaffee. Jaffee is a world-renowned computer scientist and astrophysicist. His role here is to try and educate us all on the value of technology and ultimately why we should submit to its authority. As for me, I am Jason Allison. I'm a classic middle manager, and my role is to look good in front of upper management. So this is season 1, episode 1, titled "The One Question You Need to Answer Before Choosing a Database." Now, Jaffee, if you remember last time, we opened up with the fit check. I want you to know I heard back from HR. Apparently, I can no longer request a fit check. You apparently have a clause that you asked for in your offer letter, which does not require you to wear pants. So yeah, no more fit checks. I promise to not make you stand anymore.
I think actually what we need to do on this one is to have a push-up competition. So we're going to get down. I'll start a timer, and it's whoever can do the most push-ups in 30 seconds. Let me find a timer here.
How will you know if I'm doing the push-up? I'm just gonna pretend. I mean, isn't that what a middle manager does? It's just kind of like
Jason, we are gentlemen of I don't know, whatever. Let's do this. Ready?
Oh my God.
30 seconds. I'll tell you when to stop.
Oh my! Do I have to count out loud?
Sure. Ready, set, go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I'm losing my headphones. 12, 13, 14, 15. We're only halfway through. 17,
20, 21,
19,
22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 8, 29, 30. Are we done yet?
27. That's it. Oh, that's it. Okay. All right.
You better be doing push-ups. Because I just did 32 push-ups.
That's bullcrap.
You better have been doing push-ups. My back.
I did 27 real push-ups.
I did 32 perfect push-ups.
You did.
I'm a little tired.
You were on your knees, weren't you? I know it. All right. So that's pretty good.
No, it's not.
We're probably gonna have to cut that in the audio version. I don't know if
right.
That's gonna work.
So can we get to business now? You need to stop, put down the creatine, and let's get to business here, okay? Look,
all right.
I'm a manager. Databases are important, clearly. I mean, you rambled on for about, 67 minutes about them. So clearly they're important. Without them, I guess we would get what'd you call it? Wrinkled data? So our next step. So how does one choose a database? Apparently, you stated that there's only one question which needs answering. So go on, all-knowing Jaffee. Tell us about the one question that needs answering.
Yeah. Okay. Obviously, there's more than one question. But remember, we talked last time, there's this complex space, all these axes that, you can evaluate a database on. And there's one that's more important than any other. So when you're trying to decide, you're trying to choose a database for your company or your project or whatever it is, there's one thing you got to figure out before you do anything else. And that is, well, actually, let's take a step back, because there's something even more basic you need to figure out before that. You need to figure out, is your use case big enough for this to even matter? Databases are really good these days. There's a lot of just, good relational databases out there that have been around for 20, 30 years that do a lot of stuff very well. And unless you have billions of records, hundreds or thousands of gigabytes of data, you don't need to think too hard about this. Like, you can just use PostgreSQL or, one of these other good relational databases, and you're going to be just fine.
You said relational database. What does that mean?
I did say that. So good question. Man, I'm still out of breath. All right. So relational database as opposed to stupid databases, basically. You've got relational databases, and then you've got all these other bad ideas that are out there, like document databases and graph databases and hierarchical databases. And just don't. I mean, really just don't. Right. The relational data model is the right way to think about data. If anybody tells you otherwise, they're probably lying.
Okay, so there are two database types apparently. There's relational and stupid. I'm guessing the market share for stupid is pretty large. Is that the going trend here? And now we need to figure out our use case, and hopefully you don't have a stupid use case because then we need to get a stupid database, right?
Yeah, essentially. So, so that's not the question you need to answer. Obviously, you're going to use some kind of relational database. But once you've sort of figured out, like, okay, I actually need to spend some time thinking about what database I'm going to use because my workload has, is hit a particular scale or has some particular difficulty that isn't addressed by just putting the right index on Postgres. Then you have to ask this question. And so the number one question you need to ask, is your workload analytical, XOR is it transactional?
What does XOR mean?
I'm so glad you asked, Jason.
XOR, I mean, I don't know if you're pronouncing it wrong or...
XOR means exclusive or. So sometimes you'll ask somebody like, do you want cookies or cake? And they'll say yes. That's inclusive or. If you ask me if I want cookies or cake, I will say yes, because I want both. So or is kind of a weird word, right? It can mean either or exclusively, or sometimes it can be both. And the reason I said XOR is because your workload is analytical or it's transactional. You must choose either an analytical or transactional database for your workload. You don't get to have both. Because, maybe we should.
Can you pause 1 sec? I need to do this really fast. Yeah, there's an emergency. His breathing is still really, really fast right now. Can you please send help right now? Apparently, cakes and cookies. Yes, he needs maybe a pause or something. Help him out, please. Okay, help is on the way.
Thank you. Man, what would be great is if somebody actually delivered cookies up here. Now I'm just thinking about those chocolate chip cookies we had at the on-site. All right. So this is the point where you asked me to define transactional and analytical, but because you're making jokes, I'll just go ahead and do that. So transactional workloads are characterized by a high volume of small independent requests to the database. So you can imagine like an e-commerce website called Amazon, where people are buying, clicking on items, looking at them, adding them to their carts, making purchases, thousands of times a second. There's lots and lots of different users. They're all doing different things. And basically every time you take an action on that website, that's making a database request on the back end. Fetch this item, make a purchase, that's inserting a record into the database, all these things. So this is high volume of high concurrency, small independent requests to the database. That's a transactional workload. An analytical workload, on the other hand, analytical workloads are characterized by generally fewer requests, but the queries are much more intensive to answer. They take a lot more processing power, generally because they have to scan through huge amounts of data to answer the query. So you can imagine if I worked in the finance department at Amazon, I might be interested in seeing a breakdown of all our sales over the past 12 quarters by category. And then I might want to filter that breakdown down to, a particular state or region. So that's looking through all the sales data, sorting it, collating it, and grouping it into different categories. And that's going to be a lot more intensive to answer than, hey, someone bought an item, or hey, somebody wants to see an item. But yeah, go ahead.
Why can't it be both?
We'll get there.
It's going to be a long one.
Let's get the definitions out of the way.
I'm not doing any more push-ups, okay? I'm not doing. I know you're not asking for them again.
Next one will just be in a high plank for the whole episode. Yeah. So one of the defining things of transactional workloads is that you really have, the database has to maintain perfect integrity in the face of these thousands of concurrent requests, right? If there's one purple Tamagotchi left and Jason and I try to buy it at the same time, it can only sell it to one of us. Otherwise, it's making two sales for the one item that's in stock. So it needs to only sell it to one of us and tell the other one it's out of stock. So sorry about that, Jason, because I'm going to get that Tamagotchi.
I'd have to know what a Tamagotchi is before I want to go get me a Tamagotchi.
Seriously? You must, man, I guess that fad was short-lived when I was in like middle school or whatever. Everybody had to have a Tamagotchi.
You were in middle school last week.
Yeah. Okay.
Aren't you like 15 years old? You got Legos behind you. I mean, let's be honest. How old do people really think?
Those are big Lego sets.
Okay.
Okay. So, is your workload analytical or transactional? That's the question you have to answer. Now I know what you're thinking. My workload's both, right?
Cake and cookies.
It can't be both. Okay. Everyone in the world wants a database that can do analytical and transactional workloads at the same time and do them well. If you try to do it, you're going to have a bad time. Let's talk about why. Now we can answer your question. So around 2004-ish, there was a famous paper published called One Size Fits All, an idea whose time has come and gone. 2004. So this is by database legend Michael Stonebreaker, and someone
that's a kick-ass name. Stonebreaker.
Right? Yes.
Now, Jaffee, that sounds like taffy. So, is he available to do podcasts?
Probably. You should go look him up.
I'm not on LinkedIn right now. Go ahead, keep going.
Anyway, Michael Stonebreaker, and someone that no one knows because I can only assume everyone's afraid to try to pronounce their name, Ugur Setintamol. So these two fellows wrote this paper, and it basically says, stop trying to do analytical and transactional workloads in the same database. You don't get to have a one size fits all database. And I'm paraphrasing here because I haven't read the paper in many years, but basically you have to define your workload and your use case such that you don't need one database that does both these things. You have to split up the parts of your workload that are analytical away from the parts that are transactional and do them separately in separate stores. And that seems really annoying. But on a fundamental level, the things that you have to do with data to have good analytical performance are very, very different from what you need to do to have good transactional performance. And you can't do both at the same time. There's fundamental trade-offs that are sort of in place at the technical level.
You said the name of the paper was One Size Fits All, right?
Yes.
But the hypothesis of the paper is that one size doesn't fit all?
No, one size fits all, an idea whose time has come and gone. Basically, late 90s, early 2000s.
What year was
everybody,
it? What year
everybody was looking for a one size fits all database. And in 2004, they wrote this paper, One Size Fits All, an idea whose time has come and gone.
All right, look, to the listeners out there, I just now did a Google search, one size fits all Stonebreaker. And what I'm getting here is supplements, Stonebreaker for kidney, Stonebreaker. Are you sure this paper exists? This isn't like one of your fever dreams?
Stonebreaker, like pump the brakes, not like breaking stones.
Thank you.
Anyway, yeah. So I know I know it's
Brown
hard to find these
University.
things.
Something came out of Brown University. Now that sounds smart. That sounds like someone who knew what they were talking about.
Well, Stonebreaker's at MIT, as far as I know.
Oh yeah, MIT, and then the other gentleman is Brown University. Assuming
Yeah.
it's
Yeah, it is.
all right. Keep going, please. I mean, one size doesn't fit all. Time has come and gone. Did we answer the one question yet? Analytical, transactional. How do we figure out? How do we answer that?
Well, so the way you figure it out by saying, oh man, I need both of those things, and then realizing that you actually need to sort of re-architect what you're doing so that you only need one or the other, or you need them separately, because it's really like most modern organizations, it's separate teams handling these things now. You've got one team that's running your like production backend that's handling your transactional workload, and another team that's doing your analytics, and you probably call it your AI ML team to sound spicy and relevant.
This may be the first time that you actually sounded smart, right? Because it's not about the data. What I'm hearing you say, it's not about the data, it's about the workload. That is how you're going to decide what type of database that you're going to get.
Yeah, I mean the data is part of the workload, but I take your point, right? On the same data, you can have two different workloads. You have your transactional workload that's probably generating the data, and then you can have your analytical workload that is analyzing it.
So it's possible to have a database, a relational data store for transactional workloads, and then have some sort of read replica of a different database that's doing a different workload, even though the backend data is the same.
Yeah, and so typically with your analytical database, you're going to give up some amount of up-to-dateness or transactional consistency in order to achieve good analytical performance. And usually that's a pretty reasonable trade-off. Your CFO doesn't care so much if one transaction of the latest quarter, that happened a second ago was missed when he did that roll up. He just, or she wants to get, overall trends from the last 12 months. So that's the trade-off that tends to get made.
Sounds like we've solved databases. It's all done, right? Just to answer the one question, right? We are selling Omazone Takamajoris or whatever they are, and we need to be able to sell 1 billion of them all across the world. We're going to Amazon this up, and yeah, we need a transactional load, right?
Yeah, I guess so. Well, so you answer this question, and then depending on the route you take, there's a bunch more questions, right? Then you start getting into the nitty gritty details.
I thought you said it was one question. You said literally, your literal words were one question, and it's like a bait and switch now. Now that I've answered the one question, now there's a whole bunch more questions.
Absolutely, yeah, it was a lie. It's just the first question you need to answer.
Engineers and their decision trees. Right? Like, I don't have enough paper here.
Yeah, that's so. But yeah, that's really it. Once you figure out whether you're doing analytical or transactional, then you can dive into the weeds of the very specific characteristics of your analytical or transactional workload, and you get to choose one of the myriad databases out there that might serve you well.
So if someone wanted to learn a little bit more on this topic, is there any good reading material other than the paper that we talked about from 1904? Is there anything else that would be good for our listeners?
Yeah, I think they should check out episode 2 of the Smart and Snark podcast. Which, if you ever stop having boring meetings, we'll get to record.
The PowerPoint went over pretty well from last. You made me look pretty smart. I'm grateful for that.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear it.
Cool. All right. So if there is nothing else, I can tell you we will not be ending on crunches today. I still heart rate at about 145 right now, so you come down a little bit. Mr. Jaffee, any parting thoughts for our guests before we close it out?
No, I think that about wraps it up. So hopefully we'll catch you next time. And as always, we appreciate any feedback we can get.
Thanks, everybody. Take care.
See you later.